There's a feeling a lot of people share about politics right now, that no matter who wins, nothing really gets solved, that the same problems resurface year after year, that trust keeps eroding. This episode isn't about blaming voters or leaders. It's about recognizing a pattern. What happens to democracy when political thinking is locked into a binary? You're listening to Beyond the Binary. If episode 1 was about how the political binary is introduced, and episode 2 was about how it's reinforced, episode 3 is about consequences, not hypotheticals, outcomes. Democracy depends on a few basic things: shared facts, negotiated trade-offs, and sustained cooperation. Binary politics doesn't remove democracy, but it reorganizes incentives around identity, loyalty, and winning. That shift changes what democracy can actually process. Some problems still move, others stall. Binary systems are very good at blocking. They're far less effective at building. In a zero-sum environment, proposing solution creates attack surfaces. Blocking carries less risk. Inaction becomes safer than action. That's why major legislation increasingly passes only at crisis deadlines, while long-term reforms stall indefinitely. Stalemate isn't accidental. It's an equilibrium the system rewards. Take housing, for example. Housing is a coordination problem. It involves zoning, financing, infrastructure, and labor across multiple levels of government. Binary politics reframes this as identity conflict. Developers versus neighborhoods, markets versus government. Once the issue hardens into camps, design questions disappear. Demand stays high, supply stays constrained, scarcity persists, even where solutions are technically available. Infrastructure, on the other hand, depends on boring decisions. Maintenance doesn't produce ribbon cutting. It doesn't create dramatic wins. Binary politics rewards spectacle over stewardship. So bridges, water systems, and power grids deteriorate quietly until failure forces emergency spending. Prevention is invisible. Collapse gets attention. That is neglect created by incentive design. Now, healthcare is a system design challenge. Binary politics treats it as a moral contest. Debates collapse into camps while questions about cost, control, access, and coordination get buried. Despite high spending and persistent strain, reform stalls. Not because solutions don't exist, but because identity overrides design. Disaster resilience depends on 3 phases: preparation before crisis, coordinating during crisis, learning after crisis. Binary politics shifts attention to blame and optics. Preparation gets politicized, lessons fade once headlines move on, and preparedness becomes optional until the next disaster resets the cycle. Climate change exposes the limits of binary politics. Not because the science is unclear, but because solutions require long time horizons, cross-party continuity, and shared sacrifice. Inside binary systems, delay becomes safer than coordination. Doing nothing carries less political risk than doing something durable. When politics becomes identity-driven, evidence stops being something you weigh and becomes something you accept or reject based on alignment. Facts turn into loyalty tests. Uncertainty looks like weakness. Correction feels like betrayal. Misinformation spreads not because it's accurate, but because it signals belonging. This isn't ignorance, it's reinforcement. When systems repeatedly fail to deliver outcomes, trust erodes. People participate less. Institutions feel less legitimate. Cynicism grows. Disengagement isn't apathy. It's a response to repeated disappointment. Binary politics demands constant conflict. Over time, that produces exhaustion. People step back, not because they don't care, but because caring feels unrewarded. Burnout becomes rational self-protection. Here's the loop. Stagnation feeds trust. Distrust feeds disengagement. Disengagement strengthens the binary. The system stabilizes even as outcomes degrade. No single actor controls this. It runs on incentives. If binary politics limits what democracy can process, what kinds of systems expand democracy capacity instead? That's where we go next. This was episode 3 of Beyond the Binary, What Binary Politics Does to Democracy. You can find the visual companion to this episode in Carousel 3, where each of these consequences is mapped directly. In the next episode, we'll explore alternatives, not as ideology, but as system design. Until then, stay curious.